Moving on to item number 11, Police Recruiting Incentive Program. I had to look up to make sure it was really going to be the chief this time. This will be presented by our Chief of Police, Mr. Rob Landon.
Good evening, Mayor Buckling, council members. Thank you again for your time. The item you have before you is a recommendation to approve a resolution for Police Recruiting Incentive Program. I spoke earlier about our problems with retention, not just retention because other agencies are paying lateral incentives, but also with recruitment. So the purpose of this is to increase the sworn staffing at the police department, a very highly competitive market, by offering incentives to encourage highly qualified lateral officers, which is an officer that is qualified to work as soon as he completes a field training program. He's already done the academy, to apply with Yuba City Police Department. And a little bit of background on this. In an ABC News feature from July of 2015, the author identified that the number of applicants for police departments nationwide was down more than 90% in some major cities and as well as some smaller urban departments. The cause was attributed to the low unemployment rate, the increasingly tough standards for new officers, limited job flexibility because most officers work shift work, as well as the tarnished image of the position in the eye of the potential recruit, and I emphasize in the eye of the potential recruit. Record low unemployment has made it harder for most industries to fill vacancies, but police recruiters have extra hurdles to overcome. Candidates must pass demanding physical and psychological tests in addition to extremely comprehensive background checks. Adding to the problem is a large number of officers taking early retirement due to concerns with the pension stability and reform. California Police Chiefs Association has identified recruitment and retention as one of the two largest issues facing them this current year. In the California Post Officers Standards website, they list job openings for police officers throughout the state. Currently, there are over 275 different agencies that are hiring officers. These are the hurdles we face in this very competitive field. Basically, we have three options, three opportunities to hire candidates for law enforcement. The first one is the least expedient. It takes the most amount of time. It takes a year from the officer, the time we test for an officer, until the time he completes his background, his psychological testing, the academy, and the field training program. We experienced moderate success in this in the past, where we've actually sponsored recruits to the academy, and with declining success in the present. We've recently refined the process, the screening process, the amount of time that we're taking to actually between testing sites, so we have more opportunity to screen the recruits, and we feel like we're going to do a better job. And we're seeing more success with our current staff of 3 officers in the academy. The second option is to hire an officer during or upon completion of the police academy. This is the most problematic option. Most academies are already filled by sponsored cadets, which means they're already hired by an agency, which leaves a very limited field to choose for candidates. Basically, the way that a law enforcement academies work in the state of California is almost all of them are run through junior colleges. So they run on the semester program, and they're limited in the size of officers that can go through a class based on the size of the classroom, which is basically 40 to 50 academy applicants at one time. They only run them twice a year because they run them according to the semesters again. The problem also is that you don't have to pass a background to go into an academy. So a lot of those spaces are filled by officers that are going through the academy that never have a chance because they don't have the ability to pass a background. But because it's a junior college program, they have to accept all candidates. Currently, there's only one academy north of Sacramento, or one junior college north of Sacramento that offers a police academy, further limiting the amount of applicants that we're seeing on a yearly basis, and that's Butte College. With any amount of luck, Yuba College will again be doing that in the very near future. And we're hoping for a January start date, but that's still out of our hands. The third option is a lateral candidate. Hire officers that currently work for other agencies and have already successfully completed a probationary period with another department. Basically, all they have to do is pass a background psychological test. They've already got the experience. We know they're a proven commodity, and they just have to do a shortened version of our field training program. That's the fastest option that we have. Our rank and file from the 2016 annual report lists 26 lateral officers on our staff. Almost 50% of our staff are hired from lateral officers hired from other agencies. The majority come from Marysville Police Department, Yuba County, and Sutter County Sheriff's Department. With the new penalties associated with pensions, lateral candidates revert to the new classic formula, sometimes leaving a 3 at 50 formula coming to the Yuba City Police Department at a 3 at 55, which basically means that you have to work 5 additional years before you can reach your retirement. When one laterals from one agency to another, we feel this option will be decreasing absent any incentive program. The other agencies throughout the state of California are offering lateral incentives right now. In fact, this magazine that I have here, which is kind of like our trade magazine, Police Officers Poor Act Law Enforcement, I don't remember what it stands for, but it offers jobs in the back. And if you look at the jobs in the back, the agencies that are hiring right now, and you look at what they're offering for lateral incentives, Chico kind of beat us to the punch this time because they offered a $10,000 incentive, and they just put it out there. There's agencies that are paying $20,000, Salinas Police Department, to bring a lateral over, and there's also agencies that are paying 10% of the annual salary. So we are by far not the only one doing this in the state. We're offering this up. So what we're competing with when we're looking at lateral officers is pay, for one thing. Out of a recent Sacramento Bee article, they listed all the pay, annual pay, regular plus overtime, in the surrounding agencies, which are what we're competing with. We can live in Yuba City and work in Sacramento. We can work in, or we can live in Yuba City, we can work in Rockland or Roseville or any other agency. Elk Grove pays up to $115,000. Other agencies are in the 110, 102, and that's their average salary. So we're kind of at the bottom of that, but we offer a better quality of life here, a cheaper quality of life, more urban types or rural type setting. So what we are trying to do is offer some type of an incentive. Lateral incentives are currently in place in numerous agencies, like I spoke about. The bonuses vary throughout the state. Some incentives as low as $400 in Roseville, to as high as 10% of the annual pay, or $20,000. The proposed program for the city of Yuba City would provide a referral incentive of $2,500 for lateral police officers. So an officer or somebody that refers a lateral officer to come to this department would get a $2,500 incentive. $1,250 after they finish the hiring incentive or hiring completion, $1,250 upon their completion of their 1-year probation. The lateral officer that's hired would be the same type of thing. It'd be $2,500, $1,250 upon the initial hiring process, $1,250 upon completion of probation. And in addition to that, we would give them an accrual of 40 sick leave hours to start their bank with. In talking to a lot of the laterals that we currently have at the department, a lot of them are coming over here and they're giving up their sick leave banks. They're coming here with absolutely no sick leave on the books, which means in order for them to take sick leave, they have to pay out of their own pocket and they're losing money. They can't take a day off without getting paid for it. So the fiscal impact of this is there's no additional costs associated with the implementation of the proposed ordinance. The proposed incentive will be funded by salary savings out of the general fund from existing vacancies within the police department. There will be no other impact to the city's general fund. The maximum cash incentives paid would be $5,000 for a lateral officer, $2,500 for the officer, $2,500 for the referring person. We have limitations that are listed in here that says who can be a referring person. Obviously, we exclude certain personnel to make sure there's no conflicts there. The maximum cost would also, the other thing would be we would pay for the initial uniform allotment of up to $750. A lot of these officers coming from other departments are having to change from black to a blue uniform or gray to black, whatever it happens to be. But it does cost them a lot of money to start at another department, so we figure we'd pay $750 as another incentive for that. The maximum cost for hiring 10 laterals would be $50,000 for incentives. That's $5,000 for 10 officers, and $7,500 for uniforms, 750 times 10. The alternatives do not adopt the resolution to provide staff with direction to amend the recommendation, and our recommendation is for the council to adopt a resolution authorizing a police recruiting incentive program as listed above. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Chief. Questions for the Chief?
To the Mayor.
Go ahead.
Chief, I got a couple of questions. You mentioned, first of all, sick leave. It's accumulated, but if they leave, they would come here without any kind of sick leave, so they start at zero. But your suggestion would be to allow them to bank their sick leave or move it over? Because if they leave the agency, let's say they're in Marysville and they want to move over here, and do they not cash out the entire sick leave over there?
A lot of, like our department, we can't cash out all of it. You get 1/4 of it. And some are 15%, some are 20%. It's all different. But what we're saying is we're giving them 40 hours of sick leave and putting that on the books for them, not what they left at from the other department.
Okay. And then the other thing you had was $2,500 per the person's referring it, $2,500 for the employee coming over here? Is it a cap on per person if I refer 3 people over here so I can earn up to 15,000, or is it just I only get $2,500 for each, or only one time occurrence?
You could do it as many times as you wanted to do it, because I think if you brought one, a lot of officers have the ability to recruit. They're good recruiters, and the best recruiters we have are the officers that have been here for a while from another agency that are selling our program back to them, which is why we have so many Yuba County officers here, because we had a couple of good recruiters. Yes, you can cap it. We have a shortage of about 8 people right now, so we would cap it at 8 approximately until we fill our staff.
Yeah. Now, the other question I had is, and you've nailed it, is we've got 8 vacancies. Even if we gave out $5,000, it's $40,000
Right.
in incentives. And I think in the long run, yeah, I mean, it looks like it's a lot of money in the short run, but in the long run, that's a pretty cheap referral fee. Because in the private sector, even though we have recruiters that we pay 25% of the annual salary to bring in a qualified candidate. And I think for the amount of vacancies we have, and you mentioned 50% of the laterals that are coming across, or 50% are from other agencies. So even if we get 4 of them at $20,000, if history would repeat itself, that's a small drop in the bucket to bring in some good quality law enforcement from other agencies. So definitely something I would support.
Any other questions, comments for the chief?
I have a couple of things. I agree with the incentive. I think it's a great way to bring in good quality officers. Word of mouth, it's the best advertisement, I believe. But along with that, once we have the officers, I think we also should look at how do we keep the officers here, because we don't want to lose them to another agency. And so I think we want to stay proactive and ensure that we're keeping our officers once we get them here too. So just something, food for thought, just for the future. And also, as far as the recruitment for those vacancies, a couple of years ago, we had actually talked about different ways that we can actually change up our recruitment style. And with corrections, with Department of Corrections, I actually did the recruitment for correctional officers. One of the things that was very, very successful for me, and it wasn't done before, but it became to be a huge success with the entire department in recruiting correctional officers to get into the academy, was what we called mass recruitment. And so we actually set up a particular day where we get applicants to come in, and it's the one-stop shop where we have scanners available. They do the written tests, scanned right there on the spot. If they pass their written test, move them right into a physical abilities test, right from the physical abilities test. If they pass that, then they go ahead and they're scheduled for that psych test later on in the day. And we're told during the exam process to make sure you bring your gym clothes or dress in your gym clothes, have your snack or sandwich or whatever in case you have a break in there so that you're ready for your psychological, but also do the fingerprinting, package it all up, and then they're all ready for background. And it's that one stop. It can actually shorten your 1-year process of getting applicants through and get them ready to go into the academy. The difference with our correctional officer academy was that they had to pass backgrounds before they went into the academy. So that's something that we may want to talk about just in general, is that shall we change and look at post to see if we can go ahead and change that process and make sure that they do clear backgrounds before they get into the academy, because once they get out of the academy, we can get them on work. Something to think about, instead of doing the status quo, if we can change some of our recruitment style. But that's basically some of the comments that I had. I think the incentive program is always a positive, though.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, is doing the mass recruiting. We're trying to streamline the process. And maybe I misspoke earlier, but when we send somebody to the academy, they do have the background, they do have the psychological, and that's part of the waiting time. But nobody that we send to this department has not completed both of those in all aspects of hiring.
Perfect. Right.
Any other questions of the chief? Chief, just a couple of things on this. Thank you for bringing forward an incentive program that I think the base to this program is well thought out, and I just have a couple of things, and certainly before I'm going to allow the public to speak on this, should they desire. But a couple of things that I really want to emphasize is, what's the dollar cost for Yuba City sending an officer to the academy, just in general terms?
I may have to get back to you on that, but if I was to speak, if the academy's 4 months, we have been sponsoring them through the through rent, utilities, salary, and tuition, and we're partially reimbursed for some per diem and tuition through the state. Do you have a, yeah, so approximately $60,000 with salary.
$60,000. And what is just a dropout rate that we experience from the academy?
From start to finish, back in 2006, 2007, 2008, we had a very high rate. We probably, of a success rate, we were probably almost 75, 85, 90%. Recently, it's below 50%. We experienced an issue with the last academy class where 2 of them dropped out, but we may be able to pick those 2 back, and it's a personnel type thing. There was an issue that they had. I would say it's below 50% definitely right now. And I think part of that we attribute to the screening process. We're trying to refine that now. We want local people that have an investment in our community. We want, and that's part of the questions we're asking them now is, why do you want to come to Yuba City? We don't want to be a springboard for them to go somewhere else as a lateral to another agency and get that $20,000. So to answer your question, I don't have those figures. I can get them, but do you remember the success rate?
This isn't to put anybody on the spot. This is more in the general context of trying to understand and for the public to understand the complexity of police recruitment. Chief, in training, once they exit the academy and they come to the police department, how many? Give us an idea what the training costs, and again in more general terms of dollars.
So our field training program is 4 months. So you're investing 4 months of salary to go through the field training program, and if an average officer makes about, just round it off to $6,000, so that's another $25,000. But on top of that, you're also paying a field training officer overtime when this person has to write reports and stuff. So there is a cost, a kind of a hidden cost that still we have to use in order to train a person.
And with these individuals, it's still a toss-up whether or not the police department, their training, the Yuba City's training program, field training program, doesn't have a lot of flexibility in it. It is very rigid in its implementation and expectation of production from the hired officer. So we still have a dropout rate in that training program. Am I correct?
You are correct, but I can address when you say not flexible. I would like to bring up that when we started to see our rate above 25%, we started looking at other agencies to see what they're doing. Talking to Chico and Redding specifically, what they have is a longer period of break-in. So we have changed some of our practices to allow them to get more of an orientation process up front. So
Right.
But we do, you're right, we do have a very tough
It's a high standard, and it's been held that way, and certainly the end product bears that out on the street. When you have someone that has made Yuba City's training program, unfortunately, they're probably acceptable at about any agency in the state of California at that point. So we are at picking ground for other agencies. So I do want to make that point. When we talk about Roseville, Roseville's PERS contract is a little different. So their recruitment program doesn't have a large incentive because they're able to carry their PERS contract over to Roseville because they still run under a classic PERS contract. So that's one thing that we don't have here at Yuba City. The only addition that I can see making to this, Chief, is in the 40-hour category of transferred sick or any leave time, would be under the caveat that if they're coming from an agency with 40 or more hours on the books at that agency, that we would transfer that time over. If they only had 20 hours on the books, let's say at the agency that they're coming from, that we would only start them at the 20-hour, whatever they currently had on the books, but not to exceed the 40 hours. So I think that that would be a fair way of not picking up somebody that maybe had already burned through a tremendous amount of sick leave. That we do need to bring them over and give them the ability to have leave should they become ill and not be penalized financially. That's all I have. Other than one of the retention programs that we have, and I think that the chief may speak to this, are the lateral opportunities interagency at Yuba City. They're fairly broad, and the chief has made sure that even in investigators don't stay long, and they're cycled through the process, giving a wide degree of opportunity, whether it be traffic, whether it be investigations, or other Net 5 assignments and things like that.
Correct. We have 3- and 5-year positions, correct.
So that does, it offers that broader range. With that, I'm going to open this to the public. Any member of the public that wishes to speak to this. This is a monetary issue within the city, and certainly any member of the public that wishes to speak to this matter may do so by going up to the podium. Go ahead. All you have to do is just provide us your name when you get up there, not while you're walking.
I am Dina Walker. I just wanted to say I agree with the mayor on transferring existing benefits. The sick pay or whatever. I feel that I don't think they should get additional. I think if they already have it, just transfer it. I just, costs more money. I mean, I don't know why you would give them extra. That's, if you could answer that. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much.
And I don't know that we're giving, Dean, I don't know if we're giving them extra or not, because what happens is when you leave another agency, you either get paid or it gets zeroed out. So you don't get to bring any over because we're different entities as far as budgeting goes.
Any other member of the public wish to speak to this? If not, bring it back to council for action.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor, I think we ought to clarify the issue that you brought up with respect to the sick leave. That's item number 3 on the resolution. If we're going to change that, we should make a note of that. But I don't know how the rest of the council feels on that item. You want to discuss that again, to explain it again?
We can bring it back to discussion if there was an amendment to it, or if you just want to pass it along as an open number on the 40 hours.
So do we have any questions regarding?
My comment
or-
is that I would support that it's equal to what they either have on the books with a cap of the 40 hours, but not pay more than what they are walking away from.
That could be
So if
the
you
amended
include-
language.
That could be, yeah.
Include
Yeah.
that in your
Amended motion.
motion.
So just from a technical matter, the applicant would need to be able to demonstrate to the city that they had it on the books. I'm just curious if they got paid out for a portion of it, does that change the equation? Usually, as the chief mentioned, you will not get 100% payout. You'll get 25% payout. Maybe some old school agencies are still paying larger amounts. I guess from staff's perspective, probably the demonstration that they had time on the books would be sufficient. Thank you.
I think that's an agreement. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll second that amended motion.
Okay, with the amendment in place,
Aye.
yeah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you,
Council.
Chief.
Thank you.
Almost there.
Almost.